My husband's affair partner moved into my house 11 days after I left it. I know because I was the one who made sure she would. Marcus and I met at a friend's barbecue in the summer of 2015. He was the kind of man who remembered what you said 3 conversations ago and brought it up like a gift. The first time he cooked for me, he made this terrible risotto, burned on the bottom and soupy on top. And he laughed so hard at himself that I fell in love right there in his tiny kitchen. We married the following spring. 8 years. A house we renovated together, room by room. A joint savings account we called the Italy Fund, because we swore every year we would finally go. He ran a small consulting firm with 2 partners, and I handled the books for a nonprofit across town. We were not glamorous, we were steady. That was the thing I prized most about us. He traveled for work maybe 1 week a month, sometimes 2. He always texted when he landed. He always called before bed. He always came home smelling like hotel soap and looking tired in a way that made me want to take care of him. Looking back, there were things I should have noticed. The way he started locking his phone in 2022 casually, like it was nothing. The way he mentioned a colleague named Danielle just often enough to seem transparent, as if saying her name openly proved there was nothing to hide. The way he stopped reaching for me in bed, not suddenly but gradually, like a tide pulling out so slowly you do not notice the sand is dry until you are standing on it. It started with a receipt. Not even a damning 1 dinner for 2 at a restaurant in Charlotte, a city where his firm had a client. But the date was a Saturday, and I remembered that trip. He had told me the client dinner was on Friday, and that he had spent Saturday working alone in his hotel room. I almost let it go. I almost convinced myself it was nothing. That something had shifted in my chest, some small internal alarm, and once it started ringing, I could not make it stop. I did not confront him. I want to be clear about that, because it matters. I did not cry. I did not ask. I opened his laptop that night while he was in the shower and typed in the password he had never changed, our anniversary, which felt like its own kind of cruelty. And I found everything. The emails went back 2 years. 2 years. Not a fling, not a drunken conference mistake, a relationship. Danielle Corwin, a project manager at a firm his company partnered with regularly. The messages between them had pet names, inside jokes, and a shorthand that made my stomach turn, because it was the kind of shorthand that only develops when 2 people have spent real time building something together. She called him M. He called her D. There were hotel confirmations, weekend getaways disguised as work trips, a thread from 5 months earlier where she asked when he was going to tell me, and he replied, soon. I just need to get a few things in order first. I sat in our home office at 2 a.m, scrolling through message after message, and the strangest thing happened. I did not scream. I did not throw anything. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely work the trackpad, and my vision kept blurring, but the sound that came out of me was just this low, thin breath, like the air leaving a tire. I read a message where he described our marriage as comfortable but dead. I read one where Danielle said she felt guilty sometimes and Marcus told her not to, that I was strong and would be fine eventually. He had already decided how I would survive this. He had already written my reaction for me in his head, cast me as the resilient ex-wife who would shake it off and wish them well. I read a message where he told her he loved her, dated, 3 days before our 8th anniversary, the same night he had brought me flowers and slow danced with me in the kitchen. I closed the laptop. I walked to the bathroom. I turned on the faucet so he would not hear me, and I pressed my face into a towel and sobbed until I thought my ribs would crack. The next morning, I made him coffee. I kissed him on the cheek when he left for work, and something inside me had gone very, very quiet. I did not decide to destroy Marcus. That is not quite the right word. I decided to leave, and I decided that when I left, the ground beneath him would already be gone. I gave myself 3 months, 90 days, to prepare. I told no one. I smiled at dinners. I asked about his projects. I lay next to him every night and breathed steadily while my mind mapped out every move. I was not angry anymore, not in the way that burns. I was something colder. I was architectural. The first thing I did was separate what was mine, quietly. Over the course of several weeks, I consulted a divorce attorney in a neighboring county, paid in cash, and learned exactly what I was entitled to under our state's equitable distribution laws. I was meticulous. I moved my inheritance, money from my late grandmother that had never been commingled, into a new account Marcus did not know about. I documented every deposit, every transaction, every dollar I had earned independently. I was not stealing from him. I was taking precisely what was mine and not a cent of what was his. That distinction mattered to me. It still does. Over the following weeks, I built a file. Screenshots of every email, every hotel booking, every text I could access. Dates, locations, amounts spent on dinners and gifts that had not been for me. I did not need this for the divorce. Our state is no fault. I needed it for what came next. By week 6, I had turned my attention to Danielle. Not obsessively, clinically. I learned that she was the point of contact on his firm's largest active contract, a consulting deal with a regional healthcare company worth, by my estimate from the books I had glimpsed over the years, close to $400,000 annually. I learned that Marcus's 2 business partners, Greg and Tom, had no idea about the affair. And I learned that the healthcare client had a strict ethics clause in their vendor agreements, one that specifically addressed undisclosed conflicts of interest and personal relationships between partnering firms. But they still did not know what was coming. None of them did. On day 87, I called Marcus's mother. Helen was a woman I had loved genuinely, a woman who called me her daughter and meant it. I told her everything. I did not dramatize. I did not cry. I read her 3 of the emails, including the one where Marcus called our marriage dead, and I told her I was leaving and that I wanted her to hear it from me first. The silence on the other end of that phone was the heaviest thing I have ever held. On day 89, I sent a carefully worded factual letter to Greg and Tom. No accusations, no emotional language, just dates, documentation, and the specific clause in their client contract that Danielle and Marcus's relationship potentially violated. I framed it as disclosure, not revenge. I told them I believed they deserved to know about a liability that could jeopardize their largest account. On day 90, I packed 1 suitcase while Marcus was at work. I left my ring on the kitchen counter beside the coffee maker, next to a single sheet of paper with my attorney's contact information. No letter, no explanation, no goodbye. I drove to a furnished apartment I had signed a lease on 2 weeks earlier, and I closed the door, and I sat on a bed that was not ours, and I breathed. There was one moment, about a week before I left, when I nearly broke. Marcus came home early and found me sitting on the porch, staring at nothing, and he sat beside me and asked if I was okay. And his voice was so gentle, so much like the man I had married, that I almost told him everything, almost begged him to choose me. The words were right there behind my teeth. But then his phone buzzed in his pocket, and I watched his eyes flick down to it for just a fraction of a second, and I knew exactly who it was. I smiled at him and said I was just tired. That was the last honest thing I almost said to him. What he still did not know was that I had not even played my final card yet. I had sent a separate, shorter message to the compliance officer at the healthcare company. Just the facts, just the contract clause, just enough. I did not know exactly what they would do with it. I only knew that someone whose entire job was to care about that clause would now know it had been violated, and that was a door I did not need to walk through myself. The collapse did not happen all at once. It happened in stages, each one arriving like a wave Marcus did not see coming because he was too busy celebrating. Helen called me 9 days after I left. She did not say much, just that Danielle was already there, that the house looked different, and that Marcus seemed to believe the hardest part was behind him. The first few days after I left were apparently a relief for him. He called my attorney, agreed to a clean split with almost suspicious speed, and had Danielle in the house within 2 weeks. He must have thought I was giving him exactly what he wanted, an easy, quiet exit from a marriage he had already left in his heart. Then, Greg called him. The partners had reviewed my documentation and immediately contacted the healthcare client to get ahead of the damage. They did not succeed. The client initiated a contract review, and within 3 weeks, the deal was suspended pending an internal ethics investigation. $400,000 a year. Frozen. Greg and Tom called an emergency meeting. Marcus tried to explain, tried to minimize. But the emails were the emails. His own words, time-stamped and screenshotted, describing how convenient it was that Danielle managed the account they all depended on. Tom reportedly told him that he had put his personal life above the livelihood of everyone in the firm, and that he could not be trusted with client relationships anymore. They did not fire him. It was worse. They restructured, they reduced his equity stake, removed him from client-facing work, and brought in an outside auditor to review every contract Danielle had touched. His name was still on the door, but his authority was gone. Danielle, meanwhile, was quietly let go from her own firm once their HR department caught wind of the client complaint. No dramatic termination, just a meeting, a separation agreement, and a closed door. And then there was Helen. Marcus called his mother, expecting sympathy, expecting her to take his side the way she always had. Instead, she told him she had spoken to me. She told him she had heard the emails. She told him that she loved him, that she would always love him, but that she was ashamed of him in a way she did not know how to get past. He apparently broke down on the phone. I heard that secondhand, and I will admit that I felt something when I heard it. Not satisfaction, something heavier. Something that sat in my chest like a stone. Marcus tried to reach me twice. Once by phone, once by email. The phone call I let go to voicemail, he sounded smaller than I had ever heard him. The email was 4 paragraphs long, and I read every word, and then I deleted it. And I did not respond. There was nothing left to say that my silence had not already said better. It has been 7 months now. The Italy fund was split evenly. I used my half to go alone. I sat on a terrace in Florence with a glass of wine that cost €9, and I watched the sun drop behind the cathedral, and I did not think about Marcus or Danielle or the house we renovated together. I thought about the woman who made his coffee that last morning, who smiled and kissed his cheek and carried 90 days of silence without breaking. I do not know if I admire her or pity her. I think she was both the strongest and the loneliest version of me that has ever existed. I do not regret what I did, but I do not celebrate it either. Some victories just leave you quiet. The risotto he made me that first night. I have never been able to eat risotto since, and I think that is the thing that cost me the most.